a fantastic panel on digital power and the weight of public opinion in exercising power. Today, we're going to discuss the role of technology in giving a space to the people to exercise this public opinion, but also in being a source of risks and threats. And so we're going to analyze a little bit this balance between the opportunities, of course, that technologies and the digital square, so to speak, present versus the risks. I am joined today by three panelists, Gianluca Sgueo, who is going to join us briefly, Luigi Di Gregorio, who is here with me, and Enzo Maria Lefebvre, who is joining remotely. So I'm gonna pass it on without further ado to Professor Di Gregorio, who is a lecturer of political and public communication at Tuscia University. He teaches campaign management and also is a political electoral consultant, currently strategic communication advisor to the president of the Lazio region. He previously worked in the municipality of Rome, and also as a manager at the European Parliament. He published multiple articles and books, most recent Demopathy and the Democratic Malaise, Symptoms, Diagnosis, and Therapy. So I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, yes, now it's open. I should have some slides. So let me say, first of all, I'm very happy to be here also this year. So thank you to the organization for inviting me. So what we will do today, as you can see from the title of my slides, we talk about AI and democracy, risks and opportunities, but we will go a little farther and a little deeper of that. I should have, yes, this one, okay. On, yes. Let's see why. Just start with this figure. Cumulative change in US gum sales since the iPhone came out. So it's strange, isn't it? The iPhone came out and the chewing gum sales dropped. Why? This is really strange, no? So for you, this is an illusory correlation, or there is a real causal link between these two data? Real or fake? Real or illusory? Fake. Someone that thinks that it's real, this link? Yes? Okay. Yes, it is real. Let's see why. Let's see why. Just forget the title for now. Okay. Where we can find usually chewing gum, especially in the supermarket, in these shelves before the cash registers, okay? What happens when we are there before the cash registers? We have to fill a minute of time. We are in a queue. We are, in theory, we just finished shopping. So we have to wait for paying our shopping. And we have to fill this minute. And where we are filling this minute, there are these small, cheap and yummy things that are looking at us, no? And say, please buy me, look at me, look my colors, look. No. So these things are stimulating our impulse buying, which means they are stimulating our dopamine, which is in our limbic system, our reptilian brain, which is the realm of our unconscious. The rational brain is the prefrontal cortex here, which is the realm of rational reason or reasoning. Okay, so this is different. We have to fill a minute and we give in to the temptations of chewing gum, because 90% of our decisions are made by our unconscious. So it's not casual that they are there. There are many studies in marketing that decide to put the chewing gum there. Okay, but since the iPhone came out, we don't buy chewing gum anymore there. Why? What changed? We are watching the phone, exactly. This is the way we stay in the queue today, you know? And this is one little, very little example to say that the medium is the message, which is a famous title of a famous book of Marshall McLuhan, which is also a famous acronym, aphorism. The meaning of the medium is the message is that each new technology changes very deeply everything of us, our way of living, our way of thinking, our way of behaving, how we organize societies, think cities before the cars, think our life before electricity, for example. Another example, this is very little, but it's very funny, so I chose this. Another funny example could be this one. If you go to some big cities in the Far East in Asia, you can find sidewalks like this. So sidewalks which are divided into pedestrian paths. One is for who is always watching the iPhone or the smartphone, okay? So they walk like this. And for people who don't. Since they crashed a lot, no, they decided to divide the sidewalks, okay. The problem is, if I walked, always look in my screen, how can I perceive that the sidewalk is finished and I'm in the middle of a crossroads and I'm risking my life because there are cars there? So they invented also this kind of traffic lights, which is projected on the floor, so I can go on looking down and then stop. Okay, it's red, I have to stop. You're laughing, but already in Italy, in Padova now, there are these traffic lights. Okay, so we'll see many of these things quite soon, also in the Western countries. So I chose these two funny examples to start with, to say that the medium is the message. The fact that each new mass technology changes everything of us, everything, okay? And I close with this. What would we be today without alphabetic writing, Arabic numerals, money, calendar, clocks? Some innovations, typically Western innovations, no? Also, alphabetic writing and numbers are technologies, or in terms of McLuhan, media, because they are extensions of our senses, no, in McLuhan terms. We would be more or less like the Amondawa tribe in the Amazon forest, which is one of the characteristics of this tribe, that they don't have the sense and the concept of time. For us, thinking of time, past, present, future, yesterday, today, tomorrow, is natural. But it's not natural, it's cultural, and it's technological. Since we have alphabetic numbers, calendars, and clocks, we can have the sense of time. Since the Amondawa tribe doesn't have this sense of time, or better, they didn't invent a numerical system, they count using fingers and toes, they don't have the sense of time. So if we meet today a member of the Amondawa tribe, and we start to think about the past or the future, this person would not understand anything. No, this is interesting. So the first thing to fix in our mind, in our brain, is the medium is the message. Each technology changes very deeply. So let's go to AI, which is the technology that we have to deal with today. What is AI? I'm not a computer engineer, so we will very fast. This slide is machine learning, so algorithms that learn from data, as we know. Is deep learning, is deep neural networks, or natural language processing. And I stop here. I mean, I don't know the technicalities about that, but we know that there are at least three kinds of artificial intelligence. What are the implications for democracy? I chose, first, before going to these implications, I suggest you to watch this documentary. You can find it also on YouTube. It's an historical match between Lee Sedol, which is this person here, the world champion of the game Go. Go is this ancient Chinese game, which has a number of combinations which is very, very higher compared to chess, for example, against AlphaGo. AlphaGo is a software, a machine learning software, Google DeepMind, they made this challenge in Seoul, in Korea, 8 years ago, and the challenge finished 4-1 for AlphaGo. And this was 19 times world champions of Go. And AlphaGo learned to play Go just watching games. Nobody said to AlphaGo which are the rules of this game. AlphaGo learns alone watching the game. This is AI, okay? So AI and democracy, I chose 4 fundamentals of democracy: participation, transparency, accountability, rights, and freedom, okay? Of course, it's larger than that, but we chose these 4 topics. AI and political participation, opportunities. Of course, there are many opportunities. E-democracy platforms, for example, which can be driven by AI. Online public consultations or smart surveys, which means I can use AI to have a sophisticated sampling of my number of people that I have to look at. These are, of course, all opportunities. For example, Decidim in Barcelona is an online AI e-democracy platform which is already used. With a warning here, these are opportunities, yes, but each time we want to give more power to people like this, we have always to think also that we have to give also more knowledge to people. Otherwise, that power could be dangerous. Norberto Bobbio, 40 years ago, wrote in a book, "Too much democracy will kill democracy." Because take care when you go giving too much power to people, because people maybe don't have the knowledge to take good decisions. So this is a warning. Risks of AI in political participation. Of course, micro-targeting and vote manipulation. Example, Cambridge Analytica in 2016. Implication of that is fake news, violation of privacy, post-truth society, personalized truth somehow, and so on. All of these images are created by ChatGPT. Since I decided to have a lecture on AI, I asked to the AI to make the images. They are quite good, I have to say. AI, transparency and accountability, another fundamental democratic matter. Opportunities, monitoring public speaking. So I can ask to AI to gather all the data and to compare all the data. Why Rome is spending for a bus much more than Milan, for example? There's something wrong. So let's go to check this. Identifying potential cases of corruption. So AI can, if we go to AI, the data, can identify some strange patterns. Why always this company is having all these public contracts? There's something strange. Maybe there's corruption behind this. Improving the management of public resources. So, for example, there's a Serbian algorithm projected to identify the patterns of possible corruption. Okay. And this is interesting. If the government gives you the data, and this is, of course, a premise which is very important. Which are the limits of this? The black box. Nice, the image of the black box made by ChatGPT, very passionate. The black box, which is the problem? What are the internal processes of the AI system? We don't know how this algorithm works. So if we trust totally this algorithm and say, okay, you have to tell me how to spend public money, but you have to tell me this process, we don't know it. Probably also the developers and the programmers don't know how it works today. It's very difficult. And this is a limit. The risks are predictive bias. We talked before about machine learning. Machine learning means that, like AlphaGo, playing Go, that this machine learns looking at the data on the web, in the digital world. But these data are inputted by human, and humans are biased. So, for example, the project Compass in USA was a project in which the algorithm used by the judicial system to assess the risk of recidivism, which is interesting. So I tried to foresight somehow to predict if some criminal people could do again a crime. But they stopped that because subsequent studies showed that the system was heavily skewed against minorities. So it was biased, humanly biased. Same thing here, rights and freedom. We have a problem of discrimination. Algorithms learn from historical data and can absorb bias in the data. There's also, again, a documentary on Netflix about this. I think the title is Code Bias, Coded Bias. This can lead to discriminatory decisions. For example, Amazon in 2018 stopped to use an AI system to recruit new workers because they were absolutely discriminating against women. So before we saw a racial bias and now a gender bias. Of course, there's another problem in terms of rights and freedom, which is the mass surveillance. Very nice also this image. Congratulations to ChatGPT. Which is, what is mass surveillance? AI makes it possible today to monitor entire populations through facial recognition. And this is not a dystopia, because in China it's already like that. In China, in Shenzhen, you have pedestrian traffic lights in which if you cross the road with the red light, immediately you see your face on a monitor and your name that are telling you, okay, you're a criminal person. And also, this is more interesting, the government is telling you, hey, I'm watching you. Big Brother is watching you, Orwellian, using Orwellian words. And this is, for a democracy, it's a problem, of course. In fact, in democracy, we are wondering about these things. For example, the book of Shoshana Zuboff, sorry, here the cover is in Italian, or the Circle, which is a bestseller, also a blockbuster movie about the limit of the dilemma of privacy and the limit of transparency. Because as Gabriel Garcia Marquez said, each of us has a public, a private, and a secret life. A public, a private, and a secret life. I'm now public speaking, and I'm a person. With my friends, I'm a private person. I use other words, I use other behaviors. When I'm alone in my car or at home, I'm another person yet. I talk to myself, for example, when I'm alone in my car. No. All of us do it. So we have to be entitled to have all these three kind of life. The problem in this dystopic technological evolution is the paradox of transparency. Again, too much transparency can kill freedom. Exactly like too much democracy can kill democracy, like Bobbio said before. And this is a dilemma very interesting. The last thing that we have to consider is, Gianluca, is gone? No. Okay. Okay. I thought I am the only one in presence. Okay, nice. Okay, I have stage for me. Artificial and human intelligence. We have to be aware of something. Before wondering about the effects of artificial intelligence, we have to be aware of something. First of all, that we are emotionally driven beings. So we think that we are a perfectly rational being, but it's not like that. We are emotionally driven. Then we use rationality. Okay, and this is important. And we have to be aware of it. I said before, 90% of our decisions are made by our unconscious, and the unconscious is there, the limbic system, which is the realm of intuition, impulse, and emotions. We need to be aware of that we are full of cognitive bias. So we made so many mistakes when we use our rational parts because it's emotionally driven against. For example, in politics, we are groupists. That means we are fans, like in football in Italy, okay? What does it mean to be a fan? That if I'm a fan of a football team, and my friend is a fan of another football team, and there's a penalty which is not so sure, everybody is a fan of my team thinks that this is a penalty. Everybody thinks is a fan of the other team thinks that is not a penalty. This is exactly the demonstration that we are not so rational, but guided by emotions. And in politics, quite often it's like that. My party is perfect, the other parties are the worst, always, no? Which is quite impossible. We are symbolic animals. That means that our perceptions shape our reality. If I'm convinced that something is true, for me it's true. And then I behave consequently. Many of the effects, sorry, is outside the slide. Many of the effects, so of the new technologies, like, for example, artificial intelligence, don't depend on the technologies, but depend on us. Okay. So, conclusions. The medium is a message. Means that AI is not good or bad in theory, but it's not neutral. AI will change us, is changing us very deeply. In terms not only technological, but cultural and anthropological. Everything is changing thanks to AI. Regulate versus innovate. Of course, the race for innovation, especially between US and China, does not stop because it's the key of the challenge, of the contemporary challenge. No, for example, somebody called this the Cold War, to play with the Cold War, which was the challenge between US and USSR 40 years ago. But it cannot be a Wild West, of course. So we have to regulate this. Regulation is urgently needed, because just think of an electoral campaign. For example, the US electoral campaign today. In few weeks, probably, we will have some video deep fakes, which will be very, very difficult to understand if they are made by artificial intelligence or not. So since we are groupists and I want to see what I believe in, it will be very, very, very difficult to explain that this is a fake video or not, but also to detect if this is a fake video or not. So we need absolutely, and very soon, regulate these things. Need for leadership, looking for Kratos, which is not the title of the entire festival. No, this is important because politics is somehow stuck since many years in an eternal present. So politics thinks exclusively in tactical and never in strategic way or strategic terms. This turns leaders into followers in the public opinion, no? And this is a problem because we need a leadership today that thinks in the long term and that tries to foresight what will be our next future. Last thing, man versus machine. Again, many of the risks associated with AI are reduced by understanding how we are made somehow. No? So the human mind before the artificial mind. So greater awareness of our behavior, decisions, and cognitive limits is important to understand which kind of effects will have AI on all of us. These are my works on the topic. I'll leave you in the slide also my TED talk on digital democracy. I'm sorry it's in Italian, but I hope it will be useful for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was really, really interesting. I did not introduce myself because I've seen many of you yesterday, so I don't know if it's everybody. But I work for the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the organization that hosts Wikipedia. And Wikipedia is one of the main sources of training data, if not the biggest training data for all LLMs. So we work very closely on these issues and how it how it can create information that is biased, as you were saying. And one of the points that you touched was really, really important, that on privacy and user data. And so just to say that, for example, we have a model in which we don't extract data of users. And so there is a possibility to have a different model. It's not just, like the only way, but maybe for the Q&A, part. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of an issue with one of the speakers who had a different time. This panel was changed. Maybe you knew it was supposed to be later in the day. So he's also joining remotely. I'm gonna pass it on to him. Gianluca as well is a professor of digital democracy and public spaces at the Sciences Po at the École des Affaires Publiques, and a senior associate researcher at the Center for Digitalization, Democracy and Innovation of the Brussels School of Governance. He is also the digital department director at the Fondazione Luigi Einaudi in Rome, and published extensively on this topic. He is gonna put this discussion maybe in a little bit of a wider framing. So we'll take a little bit of a step back and widen the discussion. Gianluca, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And so, first of all, thank you very much. I owe you, all of you, my apologies for not being there. It is my bad. I assumed the time was later. I was actually preparing myself, and I realized I live quite far from the place, so there was no chance that I could join you in presence, and I had to shift to the digital space. So again, my apologies for not being there. Ciao Luigi, and to all the others. Thank you for the invitation. I've been listening with a lot of interest. I've been hearing with a lot of interest to what Professor Di Gregorio said. I have a few points that are similar to him, so that will help me in speeding up and focusing on the few things that I want to say. Yes, it's true. I might provide you with just a little broader perspective, but actually what I'm trying to do mostly is to bring in a few of the critical remarks that you already heard from Professor Di Gregorio in terms of what we think of democracy that is supported by digital tools. And in order to do that, I have three statements to start with. The first one is that, yes, it's true, over the last decade or two, we have entered into a phase in which we observe technology transforming, impacting on public institutions, supranational institutions at a deep level, and transforming these institutions. That's our starting point today, I guess. But I would say that if you look at the broader chronological time span, you would realize that technology at large, not just technology, is deeply transformative in terms of how public power is exercised and distributed. You might think at the printing press by Gutenberg, 1450, a technology that changed completely the speed, the scale of distribution of knowledge. You might think of the mechanical loom, and this is the first industrial revolution that was followed by urbanization, and that led to a redistribution of power across social classes. So old power holders were replaced by new power holders. And third, you might also think of another technology, the telegraph. So we are in the late 19th century, 1870, and it's the first technology that disrupted completely the information monopolies, contributing to the evolution of what we today name as information ecosystems. Provided that technology is transformative per se with regard to public power, my second statement is, okay, now let's focus again on digital technology. And this was well explained by Professor Luigi Di Gregorio, is the digital technology is transforming the constituent elements of the modern state: the territory, the citizenship, and the sovereignty. all these three elements on which is built the Westphalian idea of the state are put in a crisis by digital technology. And be aware, I'm using the word crisis in its broader sense. So not necessarily as a negative thing, but as a transformative process. That is why governments, the European Union and the OECD, all international institutions are describing the digitalization in terms of digital transformation. My third statement is, provided that technology is transformative and assuming that the basic elements of the state are being transformed by the digital technology, what about the digital democracy? In other words, are these crises impacting on the democratic state in a positive or in a negative way? And I think both positions apply. You have, on the one hand, this is the position that it's usually supported by governments and institutions. You have technology that is described as an enabler, as a way to make citizens more engaged and have a broader constituency that is consulted. And you have also potentially a more informed citizenship. Correct. On the other hand, I would like to point out at a number of critical elements. First, every time that a digital platform has been used by a government to consult citizens, you might think of on the Conference of the Future of Europe, or you might think of the consultation, the broad consultation that was led by Emmanuel Macron in the aftermath of the Gilets jaunes, or you can think of other initiatives that were also organized by Italian governments about a decade ago via a digital platform. You will notice that the pool of respondents to these initiatives, at different scale, of course, has been replicating those same citizens and interests that would usually participate in a traditional consultation. So in other words, the civic capital that is gathered by digital platforms owned by public structures has not necessarily increased as we would expect. And that's a critical point. Second point, the public-private divide. When I was a student, unfortunately, a few years ago, in the law school, we had a clear distinction between public law, private law, which still applies. You still have these two ways of approaching law, but we know that the contemporary state relies heavily on private technology. So the separation between public and private is blurring, and that is an element of digitalization. However, I believe that most of the private technologies that are being used by governments to deliver public services are not being entirely adopting the set of values that are associated with the public sphere. Example, digital identity or the use of technology in public health. All these elements still show a friction between the dynamics of a private technology and the set of values that are driving public action. Number three is the fact that most of the technologies that we celebrate as empowering citizens in terms of democracy are not necessarily democratic per se. Take your mobile phone. Most of your mobile phone is made of a metal that is cobalt. Cobalt is harvested in the African continent, and it tells us a story of human exploitation in which some predatory countries like China are involved. Labor's rights are not being respected, and there are weaker states, the African states, compared with stronger economies from mostly from the West. Or another example are those workers in content moderation. All of these are the new poors, the new working poors that are being employed by large companies, providing services that we consider democratic, but are actually not fulfilling the idea of a balanced democracy. Last but not least, this was also mentioned by Luigi, is the environmental sustainability of most of the technology, artificial intelligence in particular. I don't know if Enzo will mention that, but I think everybody that has a concern or an interest on artificial intelligence should be at least concerned by the environmental footprint of this incredible technology. Very well. With that in mind, a few points to enlarge our perspective on what is the use of technology for a democracy. I think there are 4 topics in the agenda that should be prioritized, that should be part of our discussion. The first one, actually, the first and the second are both related with the distribution of power. In the democratic sphere, with the use of technology, we have an uneven distribution of power among collective rights versus individual rights and across collective groups. In other words, the collective dimension in contemporary democracies is benefiting the most from technologies than the private dimension. We can enter in contact, establish a weak tie with a large pool of interest, so we can easily establish a coalition of interests in a digital domain. However, our individual dimension is not particularly enlarged by the potential use of democracy. I mean, not from the many cases that we observe. And the other element is that depending on the country where you live, depending on your income, depending on your education, and unfortunately, depending on your gender, so depending on which social group you are, you belong, your entitlement to enjoy the digital rights might vary a lot on a scale from 0 to 10. Which means that if it's true that some citizens are having more power, I wouldn't say that it's true that all citizens in all democracies are receiving the same access to the exercise of public power. Number 3, this is a topic I am particularly interested in, is the design of the digital public spaces. It's a long story, which I will exemplify, which I will summarize in a very few points. But my assumption is that the way that our interactions with public powers, digital interactions with public powers, are designed is done after our interactions with private technologies, which is based on a fast service, a simplified service, and a tailored service, which is not replicable within public spaces. And this complexity of the decision-making process is something that is not replicated by the digital interactions with the states. And that brings a problem of design. Can we redesign digital interactions? There are very few successful experiments, many more experiments of digital participation that precisely for design biases have failed in consulting and engaging more citizens. Last element is the scalability. With my students, we study a lot of local experiments with digital tools for participation. And many of these experiments are fascinating, I would even describe them as successful. However, the idea of co-creation, or if we look at artificial intelligence, co-intelligence between humans and machines, this, let me use this word, naive idea that we could have a co-created public policy, or even like a collaborative way of thinking, human and machine, within public spaces, it's very difficult to scale up. So as far as it is experimented at the local level, you have quite interesting response. However, the moment in which you try to scale up at the national level, or even a supranational level, as I said before, you have more unsuccessful attempts than success stories. And that's why, for example, the OECD is particularly keen in promoting this idea of local assemblies. So now the shift to me looks directed towards a micro scaling of multiple experiments of democracy via digital tools, which is extremely interesting, but we should be honest enough to admit that the original idea of having a more participating civil society thanks to digital tools should be abandoned. Concluding point, when we look at representative democracy, and I will add the word digital democracy, you have these two positions, one that describes it as a pleonasm. So it's basically only through representation that democracy can be realized. And on the other side of the fence, you have those who think is an oxymoron. In other words, there should be a direct representation. And the moment in which you have an indirect representation, you are denying the values of democracy. We in Italy have witnessed it quite recently, a political movement entirely based on this idea. And these two positions have been challenging each other. The assumption so far has been that via digital democracy that could be combined. So we could have a distributed democratic sphere and an effective representation. But my concluding point is that we are quite far from that, and that most of the results of digital democracy at best have been micro experiments rather than a properly democratic digital ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianluca. I'm sorry again you can't join in person. This is such an interesting topic of conversation. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions about this. I'm gonna now pass it to Enzo Maria Lefebvre. He is the head of the information management sector at the European Commission. He is also a professor of ethics and artificial intelligence at the University of Salamanca. He's a board member of Fondazione Adriano Olivetti and a senior researcher at the University of Buenos Aires in their laboratory on innovation and artificial intelligence. He recently published ChatGPT versus GPT-4, Imperfect by Design, exploring the limits of conversational artificial intelligence. He will discuss more about AI. So Enzo, I'm going to pass it on to you now. And then after that, we're going to open it to Q&A from the public.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me with you today. It is a great honor to be back to the Festival della Diplomazia and to share the panel with both Professor Di Gregorio and Professor Sguel. They've said really a lot in shaping, let's say, what are the critical dimensions of the digital space towards the fight for a new form of democracy. Before, let's say, putting a bit of more add-on, especially for what regards the role of the European Union, and let me be and try to share my academic part with a bit of I would say also of fun, in order to alleviate a bit the level of dramaticity that I would say is being raised. And with that, let me share with you a very short video that we've produced together with the University of Buenos Aires.
I don't know. I can't see a path that guarantees safety. That we're entering a period of great uncertainty where we're dealing with things we've never dealt with before. And normally the first time you deal with something totally novel, you get it wrong. And we can't afford to get it wrong with these things.
Can't afford to get it wrong. Why?
Well, because they might take over.
Take over from humanity.
Yes, that's a possibility.
Why would they
I'm not
want
saying
to?
it will happen. If we could stop them ever wanting to, that would be great. But it's not clear we can stop them ever wanting to.
You are the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And the world is not prepared.
Build a town, build it fast. If we don't let scientists bring their families, we'll never get the best.
Why would we go to the middle of nowhere for who knows how long?
Why? Why? How about because this is the most important thing to ever happen in the history of the world?
You're the great improviser, but this you can't do in your head.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world? Chances are near zero. Near zero. What do you want for theory alone? Zero would be nice.
First things first, I'ma say all the words inside my head. I'm fired up and tired of the way that things have been. Oh, ooh, the way that things have been. Oh, ooh. Second thing, second, don't you tell me what you think that I can be. I'm the one at the sail, I'm the master of my sea. Oh, ooh, the master of my sea. Oh, ooh. I was broken from a young age, taking my soak into the masses, writing my poems for the few that look at me, took to me, shook at me, feeling me, singing from heartache, from the pain, taking my message from the veins, speaking my lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the... Hey, you burn me up, believer, believer. Hey, you burn me up, believer, believer. Your spirit to a dove, oh, ooh, your spirit up above, oh, ooh. I was choking in the crowd, building my rain up in the cloud, falling like ashes to the ground, hoping my feelings, they would drown, but they never did, ever lived, ebbing and flowing, inhibited, limited, till it broke open and rained down, it rained down like... Hey, you burn me up, believer. And the flames, you're the face of the future, the blood in my veins, oh, ooh, the blood in my veins, oh, ooh. But they never did, ever lived, ebbing and flowing, inhibited, limited, till it broke up when it rained down like...
I want to stop. We can't.
A pleasure to meet you, Matt and Vacha. Shall we commence our journey?
So, before we get into the deeper of the conversation, I would try to get from what Professor Di Gregorio said before, and take back one of the sentences that I think that conceptualize it all. Technology is capable of doing great things, but it doesn't want to do great things. It does not want anything, and it's extremely important to understand how we better use technology. Of course, there are a variety of actions that lead the world right now into I would say an anarchical system because of, in a way, of a lack of standardization, and on others because there are gaps into the way we process regulatory frameworks in convincing and being convinced of the fact that those are incorrect for our society. Very small example of some of the applications of it might be directly in the field of education, like Professor Di Gregorio was mentioning, and this is truly one of those examples.
红色是表示你的专注力显示得很高。
Teachers at this primary school in China
蓝色是走神了。
know exactly when someone isn't paying attention.
白色就是你可能跟网络还没有连接好。
These headbands measure each student's level of concentration. The information is then directly sent to the teacher's computer and to parents.
做出选择吧。Good job.
Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes. For this 5th grade class, the day begins with putting on a brain wave sensing gadget. Students then practice meditating.
现在想象我们眉心有一点柔和的光芒绽放。
The device is made in China and has 3 electrodes, 2 behind the ears and 1 on the forehead. These sensors pick up electrical signals sent by neurons in the brain. The neural data is then sent in real time to the teacher's computer. So while students are solving math problems, a teacher can quickly find out who's paying attention and who's not.
说明这段时间他是有点在那走神的。
A report is then generated that shows how well the class was paying attention. It even details each student's concentration level at 10-minute intervals. It's then sent to a chat group for parents.
就是他可以看到每个人的评分。
But as well, AI might have very important and I would say more positive outcomes. And here is the last video.
In Argentina, 44% of the victims in traffic accidents are young people on motorcycles, and 4 out of 10 do not wear a helmet. Honda Safety introduces the awareness traffic light. A traffic light that every time it turns red activates a facial recognition system that detects motorcyclists who are circulating without a helmet. And until they put on their helmets, the light doesn't change back to green.
El futuro llegó, señores. Tengo una chica en moto acá al lado mío que no tiene el casco puesto y aparece en la pantalla. Ay, no se dio cuenta que está en la pantalla. El semáforo no cambia si ella no se pone el casco. O sea, ahí, vamos amiga, ponete el casco. Ahí se dio cuenta, se muere de vergüenza, pobre. Es el futuro esto, chicos. Ahí se lo puso, listo, zarpado. Se me ponen todos el casco, por favor.
We are proud that such a wonderful idea reaches millions of people. We are not talking about the awareness traffic lights, we're talking about the helmet.
So getting back to the core of the conversation, for me, it was absolutely paramount to try to share with you some of those very important phenomena that are happening and that are shaping as well the way citizens are looking at the use of power by democracies and non-democracies in controlling them. So one of the things that we need to recall is the fact that all this has a possibility of a proactive approach in terms to determine what exactly can be done in order to secure a much more, I would say, safe environment in the digital sphere. And on these, the European Union has, I would say, taken critical steps to safeguard democracy and ensure that citizens are protected from the manipulation of digital power. One of the key instruments that we've seen in practice is the Code of Practice on Disinformation that was used a lot during the previous electoral campaign for the European Parliament in 2019, where there was a lot of pressure to social medias on the better usage of the campaigns and the, I would say, reaction to misinformation campaigns. And this has proven to be extremely effective, if I would say, because despite a few very important cases in 2023 in the Slovak elections where a deep fake audio was used to discredit a political figure, but in the course of 2024, that is yet the most important electoral momentum that we had in decades. Especially during the European elections, the level of sophistication of deep fakes was rather lower than in 2019. Also, the Digital Service Act now takes this even further by holding large online platforms accountable and ensures that those are transparent about how their algorithm are working, and especially when promoting political content. There is, however, a point of consideration for me that is extremely relevant, and I think that also Professor Guel was deeply mentioning this. That is the fact that regulations alone are not enough, and democracy thrives on active and informed participation by citizens. And this is deeply encouraged by the European Union through the European Citizens Initiative, that yet are not, as exactly Professor Guel pointed out, not enough, because actually they already refer to, I would say, an informed set of citizens that won't change really the parameter of the acknowledgement of how important is to get more active and more dimensional, let's say, in terms of participation in the democratic life of our countries. But indeed, with the idea of connecting those regulatory frameworks with a much deeper, let's say, segmentation of how we educate both, I would say, student at first, but then even higher in terms of age sets of the population, things can really dramatically change. One of the I would say important dimensions that we need to take into consideration is the necessity to assist citizens in identifying this information and engage constructively into the democratical process. In this sense, the Media Literacy Week organized by the European Union in schools and other educational capacities is in a way giving the possibility for citizens to really be a bit more equipped. One of the key goals of the digital compass to reach by 2030 is the fact that there needs to be a digital literacy in 80% of the European population. We're very far from reaching that goal. This means that there is a lot of work to be done. So just to conclude, I would say the EU regulatory framework, it is essential in curbing the negative impacts of digital power, and we must recognize that democracy relies on active and engaged citizenship, but do regulation provide a protective layer that without would be leading us to more chaos and in a way I would say a new form of non-democracy, of digital democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anto. The videos were incredible. I definitely need to go check the one on the school in China. So now let's open it to questions. We'll collect a couple and maybe go for a couple of rounds. So I see one question there in the back, one here, and one here, and then we do another round.
Thanks a lot. I'm Filippo Zacchilli. I wanted to know. Okay, I wanted to know. I think that in order to teach our future generations how to manage these incredible powers related to new technologies, we need first to understand them better. Also, the people that deals with them daily. So I think the question is, how do you think, and is it possible to create a way to teach and a way to to teach future generation dealing with new technologies and how to actually do it?
The second question here.
Okay, I'm Pietro Bagnasco. I wanted to ask, the whole presentation was about the weight of digital power on the public opinion. And one of the, I think, most affected areas of the public is the information the public has access to, not only for the information themselves, but also how it is communicated. So the traditional media of communication, and it's all changes, is all being mutated by these new technologies, and we can see this by the strategization of journalism, by the division of journalism between themselves, in the creation of in the desire of journalists for independence, from individualism, for a detachment from the community of the journalism as a whole. How do you think this, like, how much is it a cultural change determined by technology, and how can consumers or the people in general keep up with this trend that's very difficult then to inform yourself?
I think we had another question here.
So we talked about active participation of citizenship, but what I see are people that somehow accept this fake sense of security, and that when people make decisions also according to economics of behavior economics, they make this trade-off between safety, security, and privacy. And this may be an important obstacle to take these kind of active actions and initiative, because when people are comfortable, they don't move, they want to make changes. And so how do we combine this acceptance, this connivance of people with regard to this digital era?
Thank you. What a great question, and questions in general. So I'm gonna pass it on to the three of you. You can decide to respond to either one or all of the questions. I'm gonna start with you, Luigi, since you're here.
I'm writing down the three questions. Okay, very interesting questions. So the first one was about, we can say, the media alphabetization, somehow, the media literacy. How can we teach? It's not a simple answer. First, because you are more digitalized than us, no? So you are digital native, whereas we are not. And this is a problem. The second problem is probably, as I said before, for me, it's more important to understand how human beings are made than to understand how the technologies are made. Because the effects of technologies depends on us, not on technology. So if I would suggest something more to teach, also at school, it would be something about cognitive psychology or neuroscience to explain how our brains evolved and how our brain works. Because if you understand that, and if you are aware of that, then you can understand easily which are the problems connected with technology, social media, with fake news. No, if you are aware of your cognitive bias, you can also easily be aware of a fake news or of a fact that, okay, these things, I like these things, but it's fake, because I'm aware of my limits. If I'm not aware of my limits, I like these things and it's true. Okay, so this is my answer to the first question. Vado avanti sulle tre, poi passiamo a parlare loro. Okay. The second, yes, I'll be very short. The second one is a big question. It's a problem, if I understood well, the problem of journalism somehow, and the problem of professional media to form our opinion. Okay, this is a deep, deep problem because it starts well before social media, well before digitalization. So the fact that we are also today citizen journalists, citizen reporters, user-generated content, all these things are new challenges for a job, the journalist job, which was already in crisis before. How to, I don't have the answer, because the problem of journalism is that we are in the attention economy, no? Our society is the attention economy society, which means that also a professional media has to compete in this economy. That's why we have clickbait. That's why we have now this effect titles, this heading. That's why also in professional newspapers you can find fake news. So it's more a problem, in my opinion, of a business model of the entire sector. Since the problem is I have to compete to get your attention, how I can get your attention? Being serious, being technical, being deep? Probably not. We are somehow in an entertainment society also. So unfortunately, professional media are in this vicious cycle. So even if they want to be different, if you start to be different, probably you go out of the market in this ecosystem. So this is a big question, but I don't have the answer. The answer would be, I don't know, we will discover what happens next future. Of course, for example, another problem, as we know, is that the newspaper, in terms of paper, are now really out of the market somehow. In Italy, the big, I don't know, Corriere della Sera or Repubblica, online, they have 3-4 million of contacts per day, but paper, now they are maybe 100,000 more or less copies. When I was young, they were used to sell more than 1 million of copies. Okay, and this is another problem. For example, in the United States, maybe big journal decided to change somehow their business model. Now they are, for example, not at all, come dire, cronaca in inglese is la cronaca quotidiana. In fact, I'm saying that's why. So yeah, the daily news are very few, and they are very more focused on, in Italian we call it editoriali, analysis and long form articles, for example, which you don't find in Italy. So this is a key, for example. But of course, it's a key which is difficult that can work with mass opinion. It's always some niche, an elite opinion. So I don't have really the answer. The last one is very interesting. Chiudo con questo, così poi passo la palla. The trade-off between freedom and security, which is very interesting because it is true that we are used to democracy and we are used to freedom. So for us, it's impossible to think in another way, not to think of living in another regime. But usually this is how you have a kind of subtle regime transition. No? This is the danger. For example, during the pandemic, there was this danger. No? What we saw during the pandemic, that there were some authoritarian countries which are very efficient in close the door somehow to some zones and to control, monitor some people. And of course, in this kind of things, an authoritarian regime is more efficient than a democracy because they don't have the opposition, they don't have the free press, they don't have the privacy as we do. So of course, it's a dangerous trade-off because if people, as you rightly said, is quite conformista, no? Usually. So I say, okay, this is good for me. Why I have to risk something different? This is efficient, so okay, it's okay. This is sometimes a danger for democracy because you can start to be a fan of a model of a regime which is different, but you don't consider that in that regime type you are not free. So the problem is, again, be aware of our freedom, be aware of what is really important in a democracy, and pay attention to this. What is the real things that distinguish a democracy with an authoritarian regime? It's not the power of majority. Quite often the power of the majority, you can find it also in an authoritarian regime. is the right of the opposition, which distinguish democracies. So we have to fight to have the right of the opposition and our freedom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We're gonna have to close shortly after the hour. So, but I'm gonna pass it on to Gianluca.
Yeah, super quickly. So I'll leave some space for also Professor Cervini. A quick reaction to the three questions. The first one, how to teach competencies. I think this was this was well described by Professor Cervini in detail of his presentation. It's actually quite a challenge. We know that the rate of obsolescence of the competencies that we learn has been decreasing due to digital technologies. So what we learn today is going to be obsolete within the next 5 to 7 years. And the scale of learning a new competence is a very hard curve to raise up. This is why, for example, Italy is struggling despite the fact that has 3 publicly funded programs to teach competencies to the population. There is no perfect solution. Europe is struggling as well. The approach we know is being summarized with a very effective sentence to me is from cradle to grave. So rather than doing as we did with my generation, in which the idea was that you will learn the most of the knowledge and then you will just refine the details, we have entered in a phase that will imply we constantly relearn and reassess our skill throughout our professional life and beyond that. Very interesting question from Pietro, if I remember well the name, about the information. Most was said by Professor Di Gregorio, so I will just add, let's say, a brighter side, let's put it this way. It is true that traditional media have been losing readership and distribution. Let's say the bright aspect is that the digital technology has translated us from the one-to-one distribution system of information to a one-to-many. If you think about that, each of us with a digital platform, with a digital presence on social media, is capable of sharing content, so becoming a broadcaster. Now, we all know the problematic aspects of these that are obvious and are difficult to solve, but let's say that is also extremely empowering. So we have already entered in a phase in which there will be the need of professional journalists, but not as a way to informing us, rather as a way to explaining us in more details what's happening. Because what we know, what our way of accessing information is actually unmediated by traditional tools. And that is, I think, a positive aspect. Super interesting question, the third one, security versus freedom. And I interpret the word freedom in terms of participation. I would say, and that's not an answer, I understand, I admit it, but I would say that the binomial relationship between security and freedom, it's key to understand the current trends of democracy. However, I would also say that even in those places in which we enjoy the freedom / participation, we have an apathic part of the population that is not interested, or is actually interested in trading off parts of the security in exchange of services. So probably we should be looking at this point by informing citizens of the importance of the security and of freedom as well, because freedom is the key of participation. Thank you.
Thank you. And so
if yeah, very short.
yes, go ahead.
Very, very, very short. I would like to echo Professor Zueo and Professor Di Gregorio. On the first question, one of the changing momentums in our society today is the fact that we went from let's say an idea that we were going to university and then engaging in our future work, and that was about it, into a lifelong learning process that pushes us and needs us to actively keep on studying, keep on performing in terms of ideas and collective momentum of education. This is not only regarding the use of tech, because one of the critical elements is not only to be a master in STEM, but as well being in a way a possible philosopher, in order to understand how the deep bases of STEM are able to work. If I think about the old work of taxonomies, for example, in generating AI and the use that those figures have today in the digital sphere. So this is a very important element. The second question, here I might only be a bit more hazardous into saying, haven't we had always a polarized regime in news? The only thing is that they were the only ones controlling that, and again, here I would echo the fact that the current technology are giving us much more capacities to even decide what we want to follow and listen to diverse podcasts on our daily life. The point here is one of the statistics that lately came out, saying that Italians are among Europe the least population to read books, and this is extremely worrying. It means that we don't read books, and if we don't read books, basically we don't even read posts nor on Facebook nor on Instagram. We are becoming lazy in this sense, and this, I would say, has an avalanche into the effects on democracy. On the third question, here, safety or security versus privacy or freedom. Be very attentive on one element, and be very happy of the fact that you live in the European Union. You are between two massive and extremely opposed ways of handling power. On one side, you have China with a full control of citizens, and on the other side, you have a very loose and freed space of democracy that is the US. I think that what the European Union counts today, thanks in particular to the fact that has his roots into something extremely ancient, like Kratos today, that is the midway, is having a regulatory framework that actually helps citizens in finding their proper way between freedom, capacity of being secured in their privacy, but as well giving them a safe space to live in. And I think that sometimes we tend to forget this, no matter the wars that are more and more happening around us, that are telling us that war exists, insecurity exists, and we need to continue taking the flame of democracy very high, and the EU in this is, I would say, one example that cannot be forget.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Enzo, and thank you to all of our speakers, Luigi and Gianluca. Thank you for listening, and thank you to the Festival of Diplomatia.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.